Welcome, welcome, welcome. Dusty Bates, let's do a microphone check. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good to
Excellent.
go. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lawrence King. I'm here with my co-host,
Dusty Bates, commercial broker.
and this is Talking Commercial. Dusty, let's cover what are we talking about today? What are we covering?
Today, we're going to talk about how you can secure listings with aging or people who are kind of getting into retirement age investors.
All right.
With your sphere of influence that you have right now. If you're a residential agent, or if you whether or not you are, you've got probably investors in your sphere of influence, and a lot of them may be on the fence, and you might not know how to help them get a listing or list their properties. So,
right, and
we're going to talk about how to help them.
So basically, when we have people that are in a residential space where they own multiple single family homes or they own multiple multifamily, maybe they're burnt out at this point, right? Maybe they're done with that side of the business. Where can they transition, or how do they transition to get out of that space? Is basically what we're going to cover, correct?
Yeah. So we're going to talk to so there's concerns that they might have. There might be they've built an investment empire over the course of their lifetime. And oftentimes the ones that I speak to are like, how do I get out of this? How do I get into a position of retirement where I'm not answering calls about broken toilets and windows and, that kind of stuff. And so you can work yourself into a corner by doing that, and not working systems in place. And a lot of times, like mom and pop owners who don't own 30, 40, 50 units at a time can work themselves into a corner where they're doing everything. And then they're wondering okay, well, what do I do now? I want to retire. I want to go spend time with the grandkids and that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay. And so you got a slide here for us, right? I think, is it one of the properties that I sent over to you that we discussed the other day?
I do. Let's talk a bit about how you can take your sphere of influence, talk to investors within that sphere of influence. So do you know investors yourself, Lawrence, that own 5, 10 properties or so?
Yeah,
they've got rental properties. Okay,
I know actual investors that own 41 single family rentals.
Perfect.
To get them into this space, they will love this. If they talk to you, Dusty, obviously you're the pro in this. They spoke with you on this. This would be right up their alley.
Right. So the question that you get is, how do I get them to want to sell? Is it in their best interest first? But
right.
If it is, everyone's going to say, what would I do? Right. And I've got 40 houses. What am I going to do? I'm going to trade 40 houses for what?
Right.
I'm making plenty of cash, so that's fine. So that's one side of things, and they can actually trade it out for some better income usually, especially in your area and my area where we're located. But as they get closer to retirement age, Mr. owns 40 houses might not have a good, system in place to remove himself from the equation. He might be involved in the day-to-day for all 40 houses. Right. And so he may want to load a little bit at least, or he might have a concern about, when I need to pass this on to my heirs, whether that means retirement or if I pass on, are they going to be able to handle this workload? Right. They haven't been doing this for 30, 40 years, running rental properties. So what do I do?
Well, they may not understand the business period or have any interest in it.
Correct.
Right.
Put that in the back right here. Yeah. They might not have the acumen for it, or they might not have an interest at all. So what do we do? So right now, just so you can see, did I press the wrong button there?
Oh, there we go. That might be me.
In your database right now, and let's get rid of this guy because it might overlap. You've got investors who own rental units, like we talked about. You've also got business owners who own their own buildings.
Yes.
Okay. And so we're going to talk a bit about sale leaseback too. But both of them are going to age. Both of them are going to get to a point where they want to retire. And this is where we come in. Let's talk about some of the problems that they're facing. They built their portfolio over a lifetime. They may have heirs, like we said, that might not be interested or have the business, know-how, how to run a rental property portfolio. How do they remove themselves as an investor from that whole problem. Okay. The solution is net lease properties. That's what I've typically put people in. So we help people oftentimes trade out of rental properties or rental portfolios or small apartments into usually fast food. For the most part, it tends to be the easiest transition. It's really resilient to different changes in the economy and different disruptors. Like you see Amazon coming into different markets and different technology. Everyone needs to eat. And even with food delivery services, fast food has been making more and more money over time rather than less. So I like putting people into fast food. These are on what's called a net lease, triple net lease, and they're typically on long leases, 15, 20 years. The rent increases regularly every 5 years or every year. You have a rent increase. They're usually guaranteed if you research them correctly, if you're investing correctly. Someone worth 40, 50, 60 million dollars is guaranteeing the lease, or at least their corporation who has 30 plus units, right? So these are well guaranteed assets. Apologies.
No, you're fine. And let me ask you this, Dusty, where we're talking about this. How do you get someone from a model that they understand for years to transition? Because most people are set in their ways. They don't understand that new triple net lease model, right? How do you position that? Are you coming with something to present them right then and there when you're having that first discussion, or are you waiting and just trying to?
So we've had the same question over and over and over again from multifamily owners. They have the same questions, the same set of questions every single time. So we put an ebook together called the Real Estate Investor's Guide to Retirement.
That's right.
Do we have a banner for that? We might be able to get on the website.
Yep. I'll get it up there right now.
But it's a quick read, 15, 20 minutes at most.
Okay.
And that's an ebook you can just download. And that's the first step. When I find someone who owns multiple units, and I give them the ebook, say, hey, have you tried investing in net lease properties? You virtually have to do nothing. You really just collect a rent check, just make sure it's guaranteed well. They're usually on I give them these stats, right? 20-year leases, regular increases, well guaranteed. A lot of them are interested, especially if they're retiring. They read the book, they then come back to me, and we move on from there. Let me see, where did we go on this slide here? Yeah, here's an example. I've used this before, but they've got a fourplex, a couple duplexes, some houses. And this family in particular, I used again here because they inherited it from their father, and it was like 5 siblings or so. They were all in their 60s or 70s.
Okay.
And one of them was managing it. Another one was being the handyman. He was like 75 years old, and he was being the handyman. He was going down and fixing toilets and actually going there to collect rent every month. And they were like, how do you get out of this? You've got 5 siblings who are, not really all sharing in the work. They're old or older, and they're like, what do we do? And so we said, look, let's trade out of this and into these net lease properties. These are the 2 things we put them in. We traded I think 3 of these at once, bought a Burger King, and then we traded the other 2 and bought the Dollar General. And the numbers there you can see was about 2.26 for the sale. They bought both of those collectively at $2,075,000. There's a little bit of what we call boot. I think last week we were talking about boot. So
yeah,
sold for a price. They have some leftover money. They had to do something with that. I think they took that as boot. So they had paid taxes on that remainder.
Okay.
But you can see the change in cash flow. A lot of owners, especially mom and pop owners, have not raised rents along with the market. And so what you'll find is you do an analysis. They bought it for a really low price. They say they bought it for $500,000. They're getting $50,000 in net income. They're thinking, I'm killing it. I'm getting 10% on my money right now. Right? I bought it for $500. I'm getting $50,000 a year. I'm getting a 10% return every single year. This is great. In reality, number one, they haven't raised the rents, so they should be getting 60, 70, 80,000 a year. Number two, it's not the return on what you paid for it. It's a return on what your equity position is now. Maybe your equity position is $2 million. It's not 500.
Right.
So you have $2 million sitting there, like it's sitting in the bank, that you could redeploy into something. And right now you're getting $50,000 on your $2 million in equity, right? And that's what is that, 2.5% return. That's not very good. We could redeploy that. And this is how I talk to an investor. This is how you should talk to your investor. You could redeploy this into something else where your equity could be doing much better. Okay. And if you're retiring, we can put it in something where you're going to do a lot less to maintain the property.
Correct.
Right? Like these. Okay. These were leftovers from their father's portfolio, but he had purchased them for virtually nothing compared to today's dollars, and they didn't realize how much it was worth and what they could redeploy it to do. So they thought they were doing really well cash flow wise. They were actually making about $40,000 cash flow because they had a lot of repairs annually. So generously, we were saying they were making $80,000. So especially with mom and pops, it's really easy to show them, you're making this, you could redeploy it and make this. And
yeah, I mean,
I've got an example we can use today, actually a live example that you sent me. But first we want to talk about risk. I made this little chart.
Yeah.
And usually what we'll do is we'll put properties along this chart. Okay. You want a better return, a 10% return on the left there. You're going to have high risk. As you go toward low risk, depending on the market, that return is going to go lower. All right. If I've got an investment where I'm guaranteed, like a U.S. Treasury bond, I'm guaranteed a return, right?
Low risk.
So that's very low risk. That's going to be a low return. If I've got raw land that I then have to develop, I got to put all this work into, but eventually it could be worth a lot of money. That's a lot more risk, a lot more work on my side too. Okay. So where do you want to be on the spectrum? Okay. So a multifamily, depending on the multifamily, is going to fall somewhere. Raw land will fall somewhere. And then these net lease properties will fall somewhere too. What's unique about our market right now is everything's, we call it a compression, cap rate compression, which means there's not a lot of spread between the high risk and low risk assets. Okay, so normally multifamily would be considered more of a higher risk than these net lease properties. But right now they're trading roughly in the same range in most areas of the country. So you could trade laterally at the very least from multifamily into like a Taco Bell or something like that.
Got it. And so the Taco Bell, the Burger Kings, the Rallies, where does that fall again? In between the high risk, medium risk, and low risk? Is that more low risk at this point?
What I would say is the Taco Bells and the Burger Kings and stuff like that probably fall on the lower risk side, depending on how they're researching them. These are national tenants. These are national concepts. So you might raise that risk, kind of move farther along left on that line if you have like a local concept. If you get a local, we have one out here that has like 3 or 4 locations, a little taco joint. And so that might be a little bit more risky because as operators reach 5 units or so, there's a risk of ruin at that point. They stop being able to manage their own assets and having to manage managers, and that's a different skill set. So you start to see if you've got someone who only has 5 units, whether it's a franchisee that has a national franchise or if it's a local operator, that's one thing you want to pay attention to. Do they have 5 units or do they have 10 units plus that they run? Okay. But yeah, that's how you can kind of run leftwise along that same concept where it's a fast food joint or a quick serve restaurant.
Got it.
So that's where another question I have too is like, I can sell my multifamily, I want this return and it's not realistic to the market, right? So yeah, I can get you that return, but here's what your risk is going to be based on the market. Okay. Do you want to do that? Because we can do that. Or do you want this? And I can show them how they can take their cash flow where it is right now and essentially replace it with something that's less management, which is what we're talking about with people who are retiring or maybe someone who inherited property. They might not want to put all the work into the multifamily that needs to happen to maintain that cash flow. So you can kind of trade out of that into something like this.
Okay. I mean, I love the idea of the triple net lease investment. I mean, I think that's genius. I think I used to have the vision of multifamily apartment buildings, all that good stuff. But triple net leases, I mean, seems like no brainer for anyone.
You're trading a couple things from multifamily to net lease, right? So multifamily, you've got a lot of liquidity. You've got however many units, 5, 10, 15 units that are turning over every year. You get to increase the cash flow, or you should. Most people don't, who are mom and pop owners. Annually, you get to adjust that to the market. With one of these net lease properties, you're locked in for 20 years. Whatever it says on the lease, that's what's happening. Okay, so you could have 5 to 10% increases every 5 years. Maybe the market increases faster than that on market rents. That could happen. In fact, over the course of 20 years, you're probably going to fall behind where the market is with typical increases.
That's my question right there, Dusty. How do I talk to my sphere of influence or these investors that they're used to, they're normalized in the multifamily space. However, going in the triple net space, as far as when I say normalized, they're used to going up on rent at certain, like annually or, every 2 years or however they have it. But how do they know for triple net leases? How do they know to raise the rent after 5 years, or what to raise it to? Are they hiring a commercial broker to go through this stuff, and or are you calling these triple net lease owners now and giving them advice?
Well, a triple net, like we're talking about, these fast food on 15, 20-year leases, that will be built into the lease. The lease is going to say, tenant, you're paying all the taxes directly, right? And you're going to prove to the landlord you've done that. You're going to maintain insurance on the building with him or her as additional insured, right? So if it burns down, they get all the money for the property, or they rebuild it. You may or may not have to maintain rent or operational interruption insurance. So if it burns down and they stop operating there, they're going to have insurance in place that will maintain the rent in their stead. Right. So there's different things. You're also going to have to maintain the building. And by the way, here's the rent increases. It's every year at 1%, every year at 2%, or every 5 years and here's the schedule of what that looks like. There'll be a rent schedule.
Okay. That was my question. Because let's say I get a lease from you, like I'm the tenant, I'm a Burger King or, Taco Bell. 5 years from now, I may not know where that document is located, right? Like, who's keeping me informed of the 5-year mark of my rent going up X amount of percentage? Or is that something the tenant is responsible for?
You can have I would be happy to manage your Burger King asset for you, Mr. Investor, for 5% or 3% or whatever. But there's no need for that, really. Like, you just set a reminder on your Google Calendar, but that's the extent of what you're doing. Is you're making sure the rent's increased, making sure the taxes are paid, and then also making sure they send you an updated insurance certificate every single year. That's the extent of which most of these net lease properties that we tend to put people in is what they're doing.
I guess
so
the
if
reason
you want me to do that for you for like 2 hours a year, I'll take 2 or 3% of the cash flow. Sure.
Well, that's my question is, do I hire a property manager to manage this triple net lease? But it's not that much work for them to do, right? So do I self-manage? Did I cut out there, Dusty? I'm sorry.
Right. You did cut out. But for like a single tenant, there's really not much to do. If a tenant, there's a lot more involved stuff. We're talking about CAM and net fees and catching those up. But if there's only one tenant, they're paying all of that anyway. So there's nothing to calculate, really. It's just making sure the rent increases when it should, and making sure they're caught up on taxes and insurance.
So no need for a property manager on this type of product, right? Am
Not
I
necessarily
unstable here?
You can if you want to. If you want that extra layer of kind of. Yes.
Sorry, Dusty. Sorry, I apologize if I'm on a delay. I'm not sure what's going on. Internet is like in and out right now, so I apologize. So you said you can self-manage,
Okay.
correct?
Yes.
Cool. And let me know if I'm back on. And I apologize, folks, if you're watching. I apologize for the disruption on the internet. So, Dusty, if I'm delayed, I apologize.
That's okay. So let's just go through this real quick, and then we can jump into our quick example that we have. It's an actual property, and I'll show you kind of what I would do to list the property, if that's okay. So we'll jump over here. This is kind of what we're talking about. This is an example of what a sale leaseback would be, but I want to direct your attention to the bottom right. The point of this whole thing is saying that the income stream, in this example, it's 100,000 from like a Taco Bell owner who put his business in there, is worth something to an investor. An investor is buying one of these properties, like a Taco Bell building, for the income stream, and the quality and stability of that income stream will determine on how much he's willing to pay for that same income stream. So if it's $100,000 and it's a local mom and pop, taco joint, and it's not a Taco Bell, there's higher perceived risk there, right? They're less stable. So you're going to pay less and expect a better return for something like that. If it's a Taco Bell owner who has 40, 50 units, he's worth $60 million. It's located on this really nice corner where you could replace the tenant easily. You're willing to pay probably more and get a lower return for the same $100,000 income. Right. And this is some of the stuff that we teach the owners on what to look for in these. Let's see here. So here's my example. This is an actual multifamily property on the market right now. The asking price is. Oh, did I cut out there that time?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not me on my end. So I apologize if it's me, but you seem fine. Go ahead.
Well, okay, we'll go through this here. So it's let me know if I need to stop, but I'll just kind of run through this and just kind of talk my way through the
you're good.
Analysis.
Keep running.
$5 million. You've got scheduled income of 288 or so. There's probably a 5% vacancy if it's a multifamily. What's considered full market occupancy, what an underwriter will do in a loan, will consider 5% of the scheduled 5%. Income to be vacancy. Okay, so 5%. We'll assume it's vacant 5% of the time. Yeah, that's considered full. If someone tells you there's zero vacancy, that's not true. That means the rents are probably far below market. No one's moving out.
Right.
So we've got expenses, and then so the net income on this property that's on the market right now is 184, or on our asking price, they're getting a return of 3.75% a year. That's not very good. We can do better. Right. So I can share. I've got CoStar pulled out. We can look. This is what I would do. I would look live here. Actually, let's do this first. Let's put these numbers in. I'm going to pull up my calculator real quick.
Okay. And while you're doing that, Dusty, anyone watching live, if you could like, follow. Anywhere you see Talk CRE, we're on all social media platforms. We appreciate the thumbs up. Anywhere you're at, smash the like button for us. We appreciate it. You got any comments? Feel free. We're answering questions live on the show.
Trying to see if there we are.
There we go.
We want to look at that. All right, price was $4,995. Assume this is a cash deal.
Okay.
That's for about $288, right?
And this is the cash deal because we're basically taking the proceeds from.
Yeah. So what I do? This is the subject.
You're missing a zero in there, Dusty, on the down payment. There we go.
Sorry, Lawrence, I got full bars. I'm not sure what's going on.
It may be me.
Hopefully you can see that.
I can see it, but it may be
it out.
my end. So, uh-oh.
All right, so we'll take this subject asset. We're saying $5 million. Here's the gross rents, 5% vacancy, expenses, net income 183. So they're taking home monthly about 15,300.
Okay.
So let's see if we can do better. Let's look at CoStar and see if we can find something better than a multifamily property. So we're going to go ahead and jump over to CoStar. This is exactly what I would do.
While you're doing that, I'm going to give another little plug
here. Search
here.
already pulled up. This is the making sure. Can you see that, CoStar?
Yep, I can see it. Yep, it's up.
All right. Triple net investment. I want to know the price point. We're going to go down to the sales side. It's 3,700 properties on the market right now that match net lease properties at least $1. We're probably going to go max. If it is all cash, we could go max of 10 million, but let's just do 5 million for now. Or no, yeah, let's do 5 million. We'll try and mix and match here. Drop it in half, and then we're going to want a cap rate of at least 5. So that's what we've already selected that.
Okay.
We can look at that. So depending on where, this is another question. It's like, where do you like to vacation at? Okay. Some people will say Hawaii or Florida, or we've got some Florida a lot. We've invested some stuff in Florida, so he has an excuse to go check out his investment property.
Said it's California, okay. And so you have access to all these buildings.
I would look at
nationwide, right?
Yeah, you can too. You can go on LoopNet. LoopNet works as well, and you can get a free account. It costs you money to list property, and that, which is maybe about 30% of the market, is not on LoopNet. But you'll be just fine if you just have a LoopNet account, because you'll start to learn the players in the market.
Right.
So let's get a little bit more specific. Let's go for fast food, perhaps.
You know what's strange? We've been talking about triple net leases, me and you, for a little bit of time now, and I have never looked up triple net leases on LoopNet.
You should. There's a lot out there. Secondary type. Let's see, fast food. There, I've got 340 that are a 5% cap rate in the U.S. Pretty much. Okay, so we got a food is going to be between maybe usually $1 million to $2.5 million. The rent for a fast food is going to be determined on how many sales they can have, and they can only have so many sales, even with a drive-through. So it's never going to usually be above 2 to 2.5 million, because that would be an unhealthy, what's called rent to sales ratio. So you'll learn stuff like that. But what we could do for this seller is they could mix and match a couple of these. So instead of having the one apartment, they could have 4 fast food. Let's assume like this one. Just random one. And we'll plug the numbers in that. What we'll do is we'll multiply the numbers by 4 eventually, but we'll just plug the numbers in just for examples.
Okay.
taking so long?
I think it's when we go on live, it takes a little bit more time.
Yeah. Wait.
And so while we're waiting for that, Dusty, this is once we sell those assets, let's say it's single family or it's multifamily, and we transition over to triple net lease, that in between, where we're taking those proceeds over to the triple net lease, that in between is called the 1031, right?
1031 exchange. Yeah, we'll cover that next week. We've got a IPX 1031. So it's a 1031. You have to go through what's called a third-party intermediary, a TPI. It's basically like escrow for your money. So your money goes, instead of you taking constructive receipt or possession of the money or control, you have to not get control of the money to go to an exchange. So it'll go from your sale property to the third-party intermediary who's going to distribute it how you say or buy whatever you want. And then when you find something like this KFC, you're going to say, I want $1 million of that to go into the KFC. And then, you sign a letter and they send it out. And then it's back in your control. So the goal of that is to make sure that you don't control the money, to make sure the exchange is valid. And we'll go through all the details of that next week. So we got a 5.5% cap rate, 1,091,000. I'm not sure if I can share both of these at the same time. We'll plug these numbers in.
Okay.
So the for sale numbers. And then we'll just assume we can do this all day long. And we'll mix and match these things. But what I'll do is I'll show them an example, like, hey, you could have 3 of these. Here's what your return would look like.
Right.
Our sale price is about $4 million, if I remember right, for the multifamily. So we'll just multiply these numbers by 4. So we'll say this is a $4 million or 4 of these KFCs at a 5.5% cap rate. So let's jump back over to that calculator and run those numbers.
Okay.
Let's see here. Yeah, share screen. We want to share. Okay. So roughly 4 million. Oh, it's 5 million. So KFC assets, 5 of those. Mix and match how you like, but the point is we can trade these out. 5 million. Let's assume 3. Okay, so gross rent. So what is 5.5%? Roughly at a 5.5% cap rate, which they're saying the return on that KFC is 5.5%. So 5 of those at 5 million would be 250,000. Okay. Our expenses, Lawrence, what kind of expenses do we have on a triple net lease?
Timmer. That's taxes. Oh, well.
Timmer. Now, what kind of?
No, that's right. Timmer, right? Taxes, insurance.
Let's go through Timmer. So on a triple net, how many go through each of those? What kind of taxes are we paying? What kind of insurance? Just go through each of those because we're having a lag. Go through each of those and tell me how much of each of those are we paying on a net lease property as an owner.
On a triple net lease for Timmer, we got taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, utilities, and repairs. Repairs, right? And as an owner, I'm not paying anything except nothing, right?
Nothing.
That's what I thought. Nothing at all.
We have no debt. So what we've done here is we said, hey, I can sell your multifamily. If we sell it at this asking price, you could trade it out for 5 net lease properties at a 5.5% return. We can factor some other stuff in, like, hey, let's assume in 20 years they go vacant or something like that if you want. But your income is going to go from $15,000 to roughly $19,000. All of your management responsibilities, all your maintenance, all that goes out the window.
Yeah. I think that's
when I'm looking at listing of it now. Imagine this guy wants to retire.
I think we got a delay here. Sorry. Anybody watching, I apologize. We may have a delay on either my side or Dusty's side, but we're going to get through this one. Dusty, can you hear me? Let's see. Okay, there we go. Dusty, you good?
All right. I'm good. I don't know what kind of delay we're dealing with.
The metaverse.
Anyways, this is how I would structure it with a new owner. This is an actual property that we found on the market on CoStar. This is an actual property that you showed me in your area, as far as multifamily goes. And we showed you, this is what I would do if I came across the owner and they were like, yeah, well, what's my property worth? I would analyze it. I'd show them this comparison, say, look, you could trade it out right now and you could do this or something else similar to that. What do you say? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, why would I not do this? And so that's how you get the listing especially from people retiring.
I mean, I think this is a no-brainer. Just trying to explain this to someone that's not in that space. I think that's the difficult part. Is trying to get them to transition their idea and way of thinking as a landlord or owner so many times.
That's where the investor book comes in or something like that. It's a good lead magnet. I welcome you guys to read it through and learn about it. And, don't market it as your own, but you could use that as an example if you want, or you could kind of, take some excerpts from that and help answer the questions for those investors that you have in your sphere of influence.
Awesome. Dusty, thank you for today. I know we had a couple of little technical difficulties here with the delay, but I appreciate everyone joining us. Next week, we're going to cover the 1031 exchange, and it's going to pretty much be the go-between the investor that had multifamily over into the triple net lease. That 1031 exchange, we're going to have a specialist on next week. So thank you for joining. We'll be back on Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Remember, we're on social media, anywhere, Talk CRE on social media. Dusty Bates, thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah.